Hawaii, the paradise of the Pacific, a land of black sand beaches, stunning wildlife, and a vivid culture. Despite its isolation from the contiguous United States, there is no doubt that Hawaii is a vital part of our nation. However, Hawaii was not always so tightly knit into the Union. Prior to the late 19th century, Hawaii was an independent kingdom ruled by generations of powerful monarchs. But once foreign nations realized the value of its sugarcane and strategic military position, the jewel of the Pacific was a prize too fruitful for foreign nations to resist. Of course, acquiring territory is often a tumultuous affair, with thousands dying in the process of shifting control from one state to another. In contrast, the U.S. obtained the Kingdom of Hawaii without taking a single life, in the epitome of a historical compromise. This compromise occurred in spite of a multitude of conflicts, ranging from money-hungry sugar plantation owners furious over harsh taxes to strong-willed monarchs enraged at the level of foreign interference in island politics, to even disagreements between the American president and his own people. In the face of this incessant conflict, the U.S. government, its citizens, sugar traders, and Hawaiian monarchs were able to cooperate with each other to forge a balanced solution, a peaceful annexation, exemplifying the meaning of the word compromise. American interference on the Hawaiian Islands began with the exploitation of the sandalwood trade. Known to the Hawaiians as ilahahi, Asian merchants prized the wood for its distinct aroma, which allowed American traders to generate fortunes through their role as the middlemen. The profitable sandalwood market took off in 1810 and brought the Hawaiian Islands into the global spotlight for the first time. However, the success of the sandalwood trade was short-lived. The booming business had grown too quickly and stripped the land of sandalwood trees. By 1830, the entire market had collapsed. However, this conflict did not deter American traders. There was another, sweeter prize to be found on the Hawaiian Islands: sugar. Due to their warm, moist climate, the Hawaiian Islands were the perfect place for organized sugar plantations. Unlike the sandalwood trade, the sugar trade grew cautiously. The first sugar plantation on the archipelago was a humble venture, established in 1835. Although its first shipment was only a few thousand pounds of sugar, the foundation of the small plantation would mark the beginning of a sugar empire on the islands. In the years following its establishment, sugar slowly began to dominate Hawaiian agriculture due to high demand from the U.S. The invention of the steamboat made shipping much cheaper. Plantation owners made fortunes as business flourished. But as more and more plantations sprung up around the Kingdom of Hawaii, the monarchy grew fearful that American traders would gradually encroach on Hawaiian land. To quell this potential conflict, the ruling monarch of the islands, King Kamehameha III, created the Great Mahele in 1848, a new policy allowing native Hawaiians to privately own land for the first time. Although the king had hoped that the land claims the Great Mahele provided would compel Hawaiian people to cultivate their own land, many merely sold their claims to American plantations. The king intended to provide all Hawaiians with secure land titles, but inadvertently gave foreigners more, increasing the conflict he attempted to solve. As sugar plantations started to gain more land, they also gained more leverage over the Kingdom of Hawaii. Of the hundreds of sugar businesses on the islands, only 5 American firms, known as the Big Five, commanded the majority of the sugar trade. The monopoly these corporations possessed burdened laborers with low wages and a lower quality of life. Although laborers suffered, the executives of these plantations made fortunes due to the cheap land and labor, along with high demand from the U.S. Soon, the Big Five began to manage other facets of the Hawaiian economy, such as banking and shipping. By 1890, foreign businessmen owned 75% of all privately held land in the Kingdom of Hawaii, giving them immense influence over the islands. However, the success of the sugar industry would soon falter with the introduction of the 1890 McKinley Tariff. The average tax on foreign imports was raised to nearly 50% in an attempt to decrease the aggressive pricing of Hawaiian sugar and promote American-made goods over competition from outside nations like the Kingdom of Hawaii. As a result of the high taxes, Hawaiian sugar became undersold in America, and a depression swept the islands.
This creates a major problem for the Hawaiian sugar growers. They have only one outlet now, one chance to survive. They have got to become part of the United States.
Since the tax was only on imported goods, if Hawaii were to be annexed by the U.S. as a territory, the tariff conflict on the island would naturally disappear. Sugar traders, especially influential executives of the Big Five, became increasingly outspoken supporters of the compromise of annexation. A year after the McKinley Tariff was enacted, the Hawaiian throne was passed on to Queen Liliuokalani. After years of inaction from the Hawaiian government, the queen was determined to curb the influence of sugar plantation owners. She was convinced that the root of the kingdom's problems was foreign interference. A conflict between the strong-willed matriarch and the profit-hungry plantation owners was inevitable. In 1892, lawyer Lauren Thurston founded the Committee of Safety, a secret society composed of 13 American businessmen and plantation owners bent on Hawaiian annexation. To compromise with the U.S. government and persuade them to annex the islands, Thurston presented their case to Congress, claiming that as American planters had developed Hawaiian land, the U.S. had the right to annex the barbaric Hawaiian people. Thurston's compromise eventually reached the president, Benjamin Harrison, who wholeheartedly supported annexation. In an attempt to compromise with the Queen and annex the Kingdom of Hawaii with no bloodshed, Harrison's administration offered her $250,000 in exchange for a peaceful annexation of the islands. It was a generous contract. Harrison offered around $6.2 million in today's money. The bribe was intended to compromise, offering Liliuokalani a substantial sum of money in exchange for her kingdom. However, the Queen was stubborn and refused to so easily let go of her islands. She rejected the proposal. On January 14, 1893, Queen Liliuokalani retaliated. The Hawaiian Constitution of the time was signed under duress in 1887 by the previous monarch, King Kalakua, and had granted the white American elite unprecedented political power in the kingdom. The Queen attempted to enact a revised Hawaiian Constitution, which would shift control back to the ruling monarch, conflicting with and greatly limiting the influence of white sugar plantation owners. With their control wavering, plantation owners saw only one solution: force the Queen to abdicate her throne. Without direct presidential approval, they staged a coup d'etat to overthrow her. Communicating with a nearby U.S. warship, Thurston's Committee of Safety commanded 162 fully armed Marines to storm the island. Although Queen Liliuokalani had many loyal fighters and guards willing to defend the island, she did not call upon them. In a graceful surrender message, she stated, "To avoid any collision of armed forces and perhaps the loss of life, I yield my authority." In the face of massive conflict, the Queen prudently compromised with U.S. forces by relinquishing her power and her pride as a Hawaiian in order to save the lives of her people.
She was so terribly afraid of shedding Hawaiian blood in her cause. But had she allowed blood to be shed, she probably would have survived as queen.
Immediately after the surrender of the Queen, the newly established Republic of Hawaii, led by white men, sent a treaty of annexation to the President, Benjamin Harrison, who gave it to the Senate for ratification with his blessings. The Kingdom of Hawaii was not the only nation facing a change in leadership, though. Shortly after the annexation treaty was sent to the Senate, the U.S. elected the staunch anti-imperialist Grover Cleveland as their new president. Cleveland maintained that the American plantation owners had acted shamefully in Hawaii and withdrew the annexation treaty from the Senate. He demanded the restoration of the Queen and called for the President of the Republic, Sanford Dole, to resign. However, the widespread public sentiment in the mainland U.S. strongly favored the compromise of annexation, and in May of 1894, the U.S. Senate unanimously passed a resolution opposing the restoration of the Queen. As president, Cleveland had to put aside his conflicting personal views and compromise with his nation. Annexation negotiations resumed after Cleveland's presidency, and under President William McKinley, new advantages to territorial annexation came to light. In the wake of the Spanish-American War, Hawaii's location as a Pacific naval base was tantalizing to U.S. leaders. Furthermore, other nations, including Japan and Britain, were eager to have the Hawaiian Islands for themselves. There was a multitude of conflicts that the compromise of annexation could resolve. The only con to annexation was morality. The Kauai petitions demonstrated the opposition of native Hawaiians to annexation and were signed by over 21,000 people.
80 to 90% of the native Hawaiian population signed petitions against annexation.
These petitions led to compromise with the Hawaiian natives. The U.S. government listened to the 21,000 voices conflicting with their view and made concessions. The initial annexation treaty did not pass in the Senate and was never ratified. Instead, the Republic of Hawaii was annexed through a joint resolution signed by President McKinley. The Newlands Resolution officially designated the Hawaiian Islands as a U.S. territory, the Territory of Hawaii. The impacts of annexation can still be felt today while walking down the modern streets of Honolulu. The Kingdom of Hawaii lives on in small traditions from the hula dance to the crafting of leis, but the majority of indigenous Hawaiian culture was washed away with the tide. In annexing the Hawaiian Islands, the U.S. gained a strategic naval base which would be vital come World War II. Pearl Harbor. Hawaiian annexation also set a precedent for American involvement in foreign countries' regime changes, seen as recently as the 2003 Iraq invasion. The compromise of annexation also aided the growth of several American corporations and helped America gain pieces of a beautiful culture which syncretized with American traditions. These effects of territorial annexation integrated Hawaii into the Union and led to its eventual statehood in 1959. The acquisition of Hawaii by the United States was a long battle. Conflicts between a diverse array of people were rampant on the islands. It was only through compromise between the U.S. government, sugar plantation owners, and the Hawaiian monarchy that the grievances of American traders were settled, and that the U.S. gained the sweet prize of the Pacific without massacring native Hawaiians. The bloodless annexation of Hawaii will go down in history as one of the world's greatest battles of conflict and compromise.